Well, a tragedy happened because Malcolm's father was killed by the Klan. Many of the historians have stated, and his mother was also institutionalized as a result of the racism that black people were experiencing at this time. We're talking about the first half of the 20th century. So I'm saying that to say this is Malcolm's early life. He's exposed. He has a very troubled life growing up as a young boy. As a result, he gets he becomes a part of the system now. He becomes a foster child, and he goes from home to home. In order to understand Malcolm X's life, you have to understand that early period, the exposure to him being exposed to the Garvey experience, and also this troubled life. I would also say that there are three periods we could focus on. Okay, that early period that I just described, then Malcolm's life as a leader in the Nation of Islam. When he joined the Nation of Islam, when he met Elijah Muhammad in 1952. This is after going through all of these trials and tribulations and ending up in jail and finally coming out of jail. He joins the Nation of Islam. And this was an organization that started in 1930 by Farad Muhammad, a guy named Farad Muhammad, who was he was a foreigner. He came from Pakistan. And it was started by him and Elijah. The other period now, the period from when he joined the Nation of Islam until 1964, when he left the Nation of Islam and embraced what we generally refer to as Sunni Islam. Malcolm, he leaves the Nation of Islam because of some internal problems, and there are also some external problems. So I say all that to say that in order to understand the figure, you have to understand these three stages of development, these three periods in his life. Generally, Malcolm was the kind of figure that said what many people wanted to say, or what many people felt, but didn't have the courage to say. Malcolm was that kind of figure. When he joined the Nation of Islam, he was such a brilliant spokesman for black people that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad made him the national representative of the Nation of Islam. And he went around the country building temples, building Nation of Islam temples. He went around the country representing Elijah Muhammad and trying to articulate what was the struggle of our people, the struggle of black people here in America. Now, Malcolm, interestingly enough, he was an internationalist. And I would say that in comparison to Dr. King, who, although he had international an audience, people knew about Dr. King and the civil rights movement outside of the country. But Malcolm was one of the people who actually traveled to different countries and began to build relationships with people in in the Middle East, people in Africa, North Africa. He went to Sudan, he went to Ghana, he went to several African nations. And this was even before he left the Nation of Islam, okay, before he was, in a sense, forced out of the Nation of Islam. Okay. The other thing is that Malcolm felt that our struggle here in America was a struggle that should be attached to the struggle of people in other parts of the world too, like in South America, black people or working class people in Europe or in Asia, Central America, wherever they may be. So he was an internationalist in that sense. He also was, in his last years, a very devoted spokesman for Orthodox Islam or Sunni Islam or Islam proper. When he left the Nation of Islam, he went to Mecca. Many of you may know about his very popularized Hajj experience. And he went to Mecca and was exposed to Islam in ways that he was not exposed to Islam here in America. And he came back to the United States and he started 2 new organizations. One was the Muslim Mosque Incorporated, and the other one was the Organization of Afro-American Unity. Okay. And these organizations essentially were created so that he could help his constituency establish themselves as Muslims here in America, and also help his group come closer to Dr. King's organization and other civil rights leaders. The Organization of African American Unity was established for that purpose. Let me just end my remarks by just giving you a few quotes from Malcolm. And then in the Q&A, we can fill in some of the gaps. But one of the things that Malcolm said was, you're not to be so blind with patriotism that you can't face reality. Wrong is wrong, no matter who does it or says it. He's a very bold figure, Malcolm X. And on the question of freedom, he said, if you're not ready to die for it, take the word freedom out of your vocabulary. The only way we'll get freedom for ourselves is to identify ourselves with every oppressed people in the world. We are blood brothers to the people of Brazil, Venezuela, Haiti, Cuba. He said, yeah, Cuba too. Because Cuba was communist, and it was sort of taboo to associate with the communists. But Malcolm was that kind of person where he would just speak his conscience. And that was his advice to us. We should speak our conscience and speak truth to power.